Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's episode. We've got a failure transformation expert. Love that. With the bad note, I think. And he is from the Dan Johnson Worldwide and the Empowerment Center. And what he does is he helps small business owners to live a better life. So I'm super excited to be rocking out with none other than Dan Johnson. Hey, Dan, you ready to rock?
Man, let's rock and roll. What's happening, Tim? Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited and super pumped about what it is that you are doing with all of the great entrepreneurs that are out there that's looking to be rock stars in their areas of influence. So thank you so much for having us.
Love. So we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success that we can be inspired by.
You know what? As a young man, I was about 20, 21 years old. I was working at a radio station and I used to work out. I actually used to be buff, believe it or not. I used to work out. And the general sales manager, I would come in with my clothes on a dry cleaning hook. And the purpose of the clothes was to go and change and put on my suit and stuff and get ready for work. And so the general manager of the station one day called me into his office. I always got there an hour early. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing running the dry cleaners out of my radio station?" And I said, no, but it doesn't sound like a bad idea. And so we began to talk about the idea of me running the dry cleaners out of his station. And he said, well, as long as you maintain being above goal every month, because I was a sales guy. And so he said, I would be your customer. So that day, I left the radio station and went to the local printer and printed up some dry cleaning tickets. I spent about $80 and I started the business called Executive Dry Cleaning Solutions. We come to you. And literally, my general manager became my client. All of my coworkers became clients. They would bring their clothes to the radio station. I would take them home. I was 20, 21 years old. I would take them home. I would tag the clothes and do all of that. I negotiated a deal with the local dry cleaners to clean the clothes. I would drop them off. They'll clean them. I'll come back, pick them up. The next day, I'll deliver them. We did that for about 12 months. And from that, we opened up a walk-in facility. We built it with 4,000 customers. And then we opened up a second facility. And eventually I would give one away and sell the other. But I think that was a pretty cool story of on a good note of how we've been able to navigate business over the past 20 plus years.
Wow. Well, I love that. I mean, you're an action taker. I mean, there was no real thinking about that, or oh, maybe I'll let me go on that for a few weeks. It was
No, we
just
thought
action. Let's do it.
we thought about it in that 30-minute conversation when I said it's not a bad idea. And we basically wrote the plan in that 30-minute conversation. And then I began to execute. I always believe that there's no substitution for the lack of execution.
Mhm.
And so you have to execute. A lot of us have plans, but we don't have a plan to execute. And it is the lack of execution that causes most plans to fail. And so that's what I believe, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I see the same thing. I mean, it's a matter of like you have these great ideas, and then you think about it, talk yourself out of it, right?
Yeah,
And next thing you know, you
absolutely.
don't do it.
Consider this: Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines was established by two gentlemen that was complaining at the airport while waiting to take flight. They met at a bar. They wrote the business plan in about 45 minutes on a napkin, and look where they are today.
Wow, wow. And let's do a little analogy with music. I mean, there are some of the greatest songs, and I mean, you can look this up, were written in 5, 10 minutes. It's interesting when you hear that. Like it's just this inspiration hits and it's right. And you go for it. And then, you some people that will take, decades to write a song and it doesn't go anywhere. Meanwhile, you got somebody who was just playing around with a riff and now it's a song, right?
Yeah, but I think that's the whole key. We look for perfection. We wait for all of the ducks to line up in a row before we pull the trigger. And the truth of the matter is, ducks don't sit still. So if you wait for all of the ducks to line up in a row before you pull the trigger, then you're never going to pull the trigger. So I say, hey, if you get a duck in sight, pull the trigger. And as they scramble, you may hit one. And that's really how things go viral today, if you think about it. Things go viral not because it was planned and it was perfect. So most stuff go viral on accident.
Yeah, you're right. Now that's not to say that if you were to just go on a whim and do something that it's go perfect. There's going to be possibly something that's going to go wrong. Now, let's talk a little bit about the bad note then. Was there anything that didn't go necessarily right for you, and how did you recover from that?
Well, the title, Failure Transformation Expert, suggests that there were not just anything, there were multiple things in my life that didn't go right for me. And we had to make some adjustments. For example, I remember in the stock market, when the stock market had crashed, right? I lost six figures in the stock market as a young man. We had just built 30 homes cash, low income homes cash, myself along with the investment group. And we were only able to sell two of those homes before the market crashed and everything bottomed out because they were low income homes for people for affordable housing. And so it was terrible. And I looked up one day, I was at 30, I was nearly a millionaire. And then before you knew it, the market crashed and my car got repoed. I walk outside, I'm thinking someone stole my car. And the truth of the matter is, it got repoed. It took me 10 years to get back in real estate because I was afraid. It took me 10 years to get back in the market because I was afraid, because I failed. And failure is a real thing. The challenge with failure, Tim, is that most of us become one with failure and we allow our failures to shape our identity. And I had to learn through that process that failure is not who I am. Failure is something that happened. And if I look at failure right, it becomes a life lesson that says, oops, that didn't work. And so I learned from those things. And then I would later bounce back by the grace of God. I would later bounce back and build. We were going through an eviction, and we wasn't going through eviction because we wasn't paying the mortgage. I just was afraid to buy, so I was renting, and the landlord didn't pay the mortgage, and I didn't know it, and so I got faced with a 90-day eviction. And what we did in 90 days, I had to find a place to live. And 7 months later, we had I made a choice that I'll never be in that position again. And we had built a $1 million real estate portfolio. And so, but it took some principles, it took some tools, it took some grit and some grind in order to make that happen.
Wow. Wow, that's such great advice, man. And that's the thing, is that you know, we're all afraid to fail. But wouldn't you agree that the more failures, especially little failures that you make, the easier it gets, right? Over time?
I believe that, like I said, I think failure is a life lesson that says, oops, that didn't work. So that means every time I fail, if I look at it right, I should become smarter.
Yep.
I believe it was the vacuum cleaner. They had about 10,000 prototypes before they found a prototype that actually worked.
Yeah.
What if they would have stopped? What if they would have given up on the 100th prototype? Listen, if I can help your listeners and those that are listening to us today, if I could give them one piece of advice, that one piece of advice is issue failure a bill of divorcement. Divorce yourself from failure, because as long as you become one with it, it will follow you everywhere you go. And you won't start because you're afraid to fail. And to me, the true essence of failure is not how you finished, but the fact that you refused to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, really, there are so many ways that you can work this out in your mind as well. I mean, think about a sports game. I mean, if you get scored upon, the game's not over yet. You're just down by one.
Yeah.
And that's this a similar thing with failure. Sometimes, something might hit you, but you're not done. You fail when you quit, really. If you quit at that point, well, then you're down, you lost that game. And that's okay too. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of situations where game's not over yet. You know what? I mean, you're down by a few points, but that's okay. You can come back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I am a fight fan. So I love watching boxing. I love UFC. Sorry, I'm a fight fan. And I forgot the fight that I was watching, but this particular boxer was down um, throughout the entire fight. Um, and he was down throughout the entire fight. They knew, and it was in the 12th round. And they told him in the corner, hey, listen, the fight is not over. You're down on the scorecards. But if you
Mhm.
go out and knock them out, you win. And this particular boxer got out in the 12th round and he kept swinging and he landed a 12th round knockout. And
Wow.
so the lesson that I learned from that is that as long as you are in the fight, there's an opportunity that you win.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how late in the fight it looks. It doesn't matter how many hits that you've taken. If you keep swinging, there's a possibility that you can land a 12th round knockout. So what is that point? The point is keep swinging. Stay in the fight and keep swinging.
Yep. And you know what? It's funny. That's a pretty good analogy because sometimes business does seem like a fight. You are getting hit pretty hard with some things that just you're just not expecting, right? It can be tough. And I think that though, on the other hand of it, is that nowadays there's lots of places where you can get help, right?
Absolutely.
And for you, how did you reach out for help? Like, did you know all this all on your own? Like, how was it that you learned the things that you learned to get good at what you do?
Well, first and foremost, I definitely didn't learn it on my own. I had a few failures to help teach me. Um, but the second thing to that point is that I've always marked somebody that was where I was trying to go. And,
Mm,
and that became a vision for me, whether it was a distant coach from afar or somebody where I invested money in to sit in a room to learn some of the secrets and the trades of their success. And so I believe that mentorship is so important. I believe that coaching is so important, which is why I've committed my life to helping small businesses start their business, build their business, and ultimately scale their business. And so I do that as a coach because of the fact there was things that I learned that you don't have to make those same mistakes. I've already failed at it. I've already got the book on it and I got the sauce to how to transform it into success. So let's me and you work together. And so I've had people along the way. Spiritually, I have a spiritual coach. I have a pastor that I rely on. When I wanted to learn more about internet marketing, I was speaking in Thailand at an international internet marketing conference, and I learned from there. When I wanted to become better in sales, I learned I marked someone and I learned from there. And so if you're going to become better, you have to make certain that you're not limiting yourself to yourself,
yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think really the first part of it is that you've got to sort of let go of a bit of that ego, thinking that you're already great at everything, and realize that, hey, you know what? There's some other people out there that might be a little bit further down the road than I am. It's just like in a race. I mean, if you're in a race, you look at the person in front of you and you try to keep pace with them. That's like your guideline, right? You know that you can kind of stay behind them and get a little bit closer, but you have to have something that you're shooting towards. Otherwise, I mean, it's like imagine trying to run a race and everybody runs the race alone. How, how would you know if you're winning?
Yeah, yeah, you won't know. And that's what I think why vision is so important. The beginning of anything that ever exists is vision. And
Mhm.
vision takes you beyond where you are. And because vision takes you beyond where you are, I believe vision helps you. It provides your daily activity direction. It says that because this is where I'm going, then this is what I'm going to have to do today to get there tomorrow. And so vision is the driving force of where you're seeking to go and how to actually get there.
I love that. Right on. So let's talk a little bit about the band, about the people that you have around you. Now, is there actually what's the first thing you did? Like who were the first people that you hired into your team? And did you hire them or did you subcontract? Like what does your band look like?
Well, so the answer is C, all of the above, right? I am a serial entrepreneur, keyword pray, other keyword serial. So I own multiple businesses. So, for example, in my real estate business, I have about 9 employees. All of them have variations of skill sets that's needed in order to build a home. I trained my son. He's 21. He's been working with me now for about 4 years. He owns 51% of that company.
Wow.
So I do client relations and business development, and then he does everything else. And so I have that infrastructure in place. And then we have an office manager that kind of handles the administration. You got to have a team, right? So with Dan Johnson Worldwide, we have someone been in communication with you when it was time to facilitate this booking. We have that person that handles scheduling and things of that nature. We have another person that handles all of our presentations when we have to do PowerPoints and do our graphics. And so we have a person that's full time that does that. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is you got to have a team. And one of the things I've learned about building teams, earlier on, I hired people, Tim, that I was trying to help, but didn't necessarily have the capacity to help me. Earlier on, I hired people with my head, with my heart, and not my head.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned is you got to hire the right people. Now, what does the right people look like? Number one, those are the individuals that understands the vision. Number two, those are the individuals that have the necessary capacity to keep up with you in running towards the vision.
Yeah.
Number three, those are people that have the competency in their area of expertise as they work within the business. Number four, those are people that have compassion for people and seeing the business overall, the vision of that business and the mission of that business successful.
Wow. Yeah. This reminds me of like the whole, you have to fill your own cup before you can start to help to others, right? I mean, if you're sort of just starting your business and getting going, then you're right. I mean, if you hire friends, family, people that you're trying to help, well, it's not going to get you very far, right? You need to hire the people that you just mentioned with those principles in order to make sure that you get ahead, and then maybe you can be in a situation where you can give back, right?
Right. But guess what? It wasn't always like that, right? We're home-based business. We're in our homes, we're by ourselves. And so that's the other piece. You got to have an unbelievable work ethic. And you got to use what I call the WOWS method, WOWSE, and that answers this question. What are you willing to do with or without someone else? Because sometimes we stagnate our business because we're waiting for help when we have to become that help first and foremost.
Hey Rockstar, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. If you didn't know already, my business is Creative Crew Agency. We build websites. Now, let's talk about your website for a minute. Most people realize that at this day and age, we need a website, but we don't really know what the website is supposed to do. And sometimes you'll just go and build a website for the sake of building a website. What I do is I make sure that your website actually accomplishes a goal. Now, there are three main goals to most websites. Number one is to provide information and build credibility. Number two is to schedule some sort of appointment and get them onto a sales call. Number three is to sell something like an e-commerce site. Now, when you're setting your website, you have to be very mindful that the visitor doesn't know what to do. And so you have to provide them with a roadmap that leads them down a path to wherever you want them to go. On my website, I want them to be on a free consultation. So that's why when you go to creativecrewagency.com, you'll see information about scheduling a free consultation. Now, for you, though, I'm going to provide you with an extra link so that you can get your free website audit. Go to creativecrewagency.com/free website audit, and schedule an audit with me, and I'll go through your website live and determine what we can do to improve your conversions and make sure that you're getting the business from your website. Go to creativecrewagency.com and we'll see you there.
And you learn so much through doing that. I mean, I've been in that situation too, where you're kind of going like, well, I don't really know how to do this. It's not going to be perfect, but when it comes down to it, it's either not perfect or not done at all. You've got to do something, right?
Absolutely. One of my clients this year is their fifth year. They're in the health and wellness industry. I've been a consultant for them for 5 years, and they started out zero, right? And now they're a multi-million dollar organization. But I tell stories all the time of the CEO who was in the little small cubicle area putting hand labels on the bottles herself. They developed a team called Team No Sleep. Well, it was like 3 or 4 people. They never slept to build this now multi-million dollar company with 30,000 customers and 3,000 distributors across the country. But it started out with the CEO putting the labels in. It started out as a consultant. I walk in, with my high and mighty self as a consultant, and she says, "Hey, Dan, can you stir this this lotion for me and keep stirring it so we can put it in a bottle while we're meeting?" Sometimes you just got to do it. You got to do it yourself until you get to that place where you can hire somebody else.
Yep. And you know what? That like that's like a bar. That's like a bar that that what, this is how I can do it. So now when you're looking for someone to help you, that's the bar. And that's as low as they're going to go. It's a matter of finding someone that can do it just a little bit better than that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, on the other hand, when you start to get to that point, you now free up that time so you can go and do something else, right?
Yes. And that's the whole key. You want to get to the place where you're not working at your business, you're working on your business.
Yeah.
And I think when I shared that model with my son about my son, that's kind of where we are now, where I'm not working at the business. I'm talking to you, but I see the communication threads. He's been up talking to everybody all morning. He's the one that's ordering supplies. He's the one that's making, Home Depot runs and all of those things while I'm talking to you. So I'm working, and then I'm the one that's building the business. I'm working on the business with getting new clients and things of that nature. And that's what you want to do. You want to set up an infrastructure where you're no longer having to be the guy to put the labels on the bottles, but you're the guy that's talking to the stores that's going to buy the bottles.
Yeah. I think most people would say, "Hey, can I skip the part where I'm doing all the stuff and I just get to the point where Dan is right now?"
Well, to me, there's no shortcuts because you're looking at where I am right now, but the part that you want to skip is actually what got me here.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. The part that you want to skip is what got me here. And if you want to get to where I am, then you're going to have to do the part. You're going to have to do the part you want to skip because I didn't skip that part. And that's what I think is so important about entrepreneurs. Unless you have a bunch of money that you can just throw at the wall and waste, which I'd never had that. And I think I shared with you off camera that every business pretty much that we've started, with the exception of one, and we've started and built over 12 businesses with the exception of one, every one that we started with $100 or less. And we built it one day, one sweat, one tear, one failure, one broken brick at a time.
Yeah. To me, that's super inspiring. Like, because I think to myself, well, you know what? I didn't grow up with a boatload of money either. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are listening to this that don't have a ton of money. What we do have is we all have time. We all have time, and we all have the ability to use that time to get to that point, right?
Listen, and that time is one of the most valuable assets that we have ever been given. The value of time. And I think the problem is most people don't understand the value of time. I actually entrepreneurs, and I've coached CEOs on this piece called "What's Stealing Your Time and Killing Your Productivity." What's stealing your time and killing your productivity? And we can analyze. We analyze for 7 days where our time is going,
Yeah.
and we show you how to get that time back, so that you can use that time and invest it so that it can get a return.
Yeah, I've done that exercise as well, and I would say, I recommend to everybody to do that exercise of seeing where your time goes, because it'll blow your mind. It really, I'm sure, and even I mean, you're a high achieving person. I'm pretty sure when you did that, it probably blew your mind. It's
Well, let
because
me
it's
tell
just
you, I did it at the age of 42. No, at the age of 40. When
yeah,
I did it at the age of 40. And I realized I had about 26 hours a week unaccounted for. So guess what I did, Tim? I went back to school,
wow,
and I took 4 to 5 classes per semester, full time, as a grown man with 5 children, with multiple businesses, traveling across the country. And I was able to graduate 2 years later, magna cum laude, because I took my time back. I found my time, and I said, I can't waste this time anymore. I'll say this, and I want you to consider this, Tim. Every day in your life is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It is a day that you've never seen before, and it is a day you'll never see again, which means every second that goes by is a second of your life going by.
yeah,
What are you going to do with your day? And in answering that question, it also answers the question, what are you going to do with your life? Stop wasting time.
yeah, yeah. So important, and it's so crazy because we think about, okay, some people don't think about money at all. A lot of people do sort of account for their money. They budget their money. They figure out where their money's going, and they know that. We don't do that same type of budgeting with our time, and we should, because there's a lot of time being wasted. That if you took that time and, like you say, go to school, there's a million things you could be doing, and a lot of it is distractions, watching TV, things that entertainment, right?
Yeah, and phone calls that you
Yep.
didn't schedule.
Yeah.
When people call me and they say, "Hey, Dan, what you doing?" I'm always doing something. And then I say, "What you doing?" They say nothing. I say, "Well, I'm gonna let you get back to your nothing so I can get back to my something, and I'll talk to you."
Fun. And I think that right there is a good tip on its own of, like, don't answer the phone. Like, I don't answer the phone on the first ring. I'll actually let it sit, and then I'll get back to the person when I have some free time in the calendar that's scheduled. And I think that's important because when people realize that they can just get a hold of you at any time because you're working from home, and it ends up wasting your time, and they end up asking you to do stuff that you feel bad saying no to, right?
Yeah, and then most times they ask you to do it for free, and they know that you're the guy that's how you get paid, right? And so, I tell people all the time, even clients that I coach, you can't pay me to waste my time. It's too valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about tools. So what are the tools and instruments that you use to get success in your business?
You know what? There's 4 principles that I believe can transform any failure into success. There's 4 principles that you can have that can help you become successful. The first principle is focus. We just talked about distractions and things of that nature. There's a lot going on in life, but you got to be able to stay focused. The second thing is confidence, because if you don't believe in yourself, then nobody else is going to believe in it. If you don't believe you can do it, then you'll never try. And so, if you didn't believe, Tim, that you had something to offer through this Rockstar podcast, then you would have never started it. You would have never offered it. So, number 1 is focus. Number 2 is confidence. Number 3 is discipline. We got to have discipline. You got to have successful discipline habits in order to be successful. It's not going to happen because you want it to happen. It's going to happen because you work for it to happen. Greatness is not something that's given. It's something that is achieved. And anything that requires achievement requires a work. It requires discipline. And so you got to have discipline. And then the fourth thing is consistency. Sometimes we quit too soon. Sometimes we give up too soon. Sometimes we throw in the towel too soon. But I believe that if you do the right thing consistent enough, long enough, it will eventually be enough. So focus, confidence, discipline, and consistency.
And I think I would add one more. I would add forgiveness. Forgive yourself if you don't follow any of those things and just start again.
Hey, you know what, Tim, when you said that, I thought about I got a chick on the side. Now, I'm just going to be honest. I have a chick on the side. Would you like me to tell you about my chick on the side? All right, real quick. I love her, because whenever I give her, share a vision with her, what she does is she immediately receives my vision, and then she immediately goes and gives me direction to help me get there. And when I follow those directions, sometimes I come into detours. Sometimes I make the wrong turn. Sometimes I stop. Even though she's giving me the directions to get there, sometimes I miss it. I'm not paying attention. But what I like about my chick on the side is that whenever I make the wrong turn, whenever I come to a detour, whenever I stop, she doesn't fuss. She doesn't cuss. She doesn't tell me how much of a failure I am. What she does is she just recalculates. And when she recalculates, two things she does. She forget about where I started. She picks me up from where I am, and she doesn't forget my destination to where I'm going. And that's why I love Siri so much. And so if I can tell you, some of you may have a chick on the side named Siri. Yeah. And I want you to do is do what Siri does for you. Do it for yourself. Hey, listen, you made the wrong turn. You came up against a detour. Listen, don't change your destination. You may have to change the route to get there, but you don't have to change the destination. And don't beat yourself up. The fact that you made the mistake. Forget about where you came from. Pick up from where you are, but never change where you're going.
Love that. I love that. Oh, so good. No, you're right. And I agree with all that. I mean, and when it comes to the confidence part of it as well, the one thing that I would say on that is that sometimes I know I've been in a place where I wasn't 100% confident that whatever's like maybe a sales call. Sales call is a good example. You're scared to pick up the phone. You're scared to call that person and ask them for the sale or whatever it is you're going to do. But I mean, the bottom line is that you know your business. I mean, you know that you've got something to offer. So, if you're confident in that part of it, you still might be scared to pick up the phone. But what ends up happening is that when you make those calls, sometimes it goes better than you expect it to. You make the call, you ask them a couple questions, you find out that they do have a problem. You say, hey, are you open to looking at this? They say yes. You're like, what? Okay.
Now what?
Oh, what? Yeah, exactly. I know the first time. I don't know. Okay. Let's move on from that. But sometimes it'll surprise you that people are actually looking for what it is that you want, and then that builds your confidence. Once you get a couple yeses, now you're like, okay, people are looking for this, and it
Yeah.
just kind of pumps you right up. Now you're like, okay, I'm now going to make another call.
So you know what I do for those that are in sales that are afraid to make those calls? I change their goals. I change their goals. And I tell them, listen, I need you to go get me 100 no's today. Go after 100 no's. So your goal is not a yes. Your goal is no's. And on your way going after 100 no's, you stumble across a few yeses.
Yeah.
And you learn some things along the way. And the more you learn and the more you go after the no's, the more yeses you're going to get. So you don't deal with rejection when someone tells you no, because you're excited. You hit the goal. I got another no. And that I've learned that helped me when I was young and in sales. And it's helped many people that we've coached to get over that fear of rejection of making the call. Because now you're making a call saying, hey, I got to go after 100 no's.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what else too is that on the other end of that line, you've got somebody who, is now a little bit confused because you don't need them anymore. Now it's a matter of you're not desperate. You're actually okay with them saying no. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes people are like, oh, maybe just actually give me some time to think about it. They might call you back.
Yeah, they would. I mean, one of my, I told you a success story about sales, but one of my failures about sales is that I didn't like rejection. So if
Mhm.
I called on you 2, 3 times and you didn't respond, I wouldn't call no more. And then I'll look up and somebody else got you
Yep.
because I told myself no. You see, and that's what I like to help people to understand, Tim. The reality is, don't tell yourself no before asking for the yes. Think about how many times we're debating. No, they're not going to want to do it.
Oh
No,
yeah.
tell me no. No, you know what? I might as well not even waste my time and ask. Stop telling yourself no before you ask for the yes. Ask for it. The worst they can say is no, but ask because they
Yeah.
can't. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I hope that anybody who's listening to this is listening to us. We both yes. It's normal, right? It's normal. However, you just gotta, like you say, you just gotta ask for it because you never know. You never know. And one of the things that you just said though, that is totally true. If you're working in a sales team and you're all working for the same people and you watch your buddy go out there and get that sale that you said to yourself, they're not going to be interested in. Oh,
Yeah,
there's nothing more motivating than that.
I felt that pain. I felt that pain. It's terrible. And so, I'm going to ask for the yes. And
Yeah,
you're going to have to tell me no. And if you tell me no, that means I only got 99 more no's to go.
you betcha. All right, so it's time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business right now, Dan.
So, right now we're focused on really three areas. And number one, we're focused on helping you to transform mental failure into success because success is really a mindset. And, some of us, we've dealt with a lot of trauma in our past and all of those things. And so we got a few webinars that's coming up to help do that, the failure transformation webinars. Number two, we just launched a financial literacy board game and a
Mhm.
financial literacy book. We're teaching financial literacy all across the country. And the last thing, which is really big for me, is through our non-for-profit organization, we leave March 27 for South Africa, and we're building in South Africa fresh produce markets. We've adopted schools. We're building a school classrooms for schools there, and dormitories for safe housing for young girls to be able to go to school safely. And so those are the things that we have going on. So if we looked at as I give my guest solo, I would say this for your listeners that are listening today. They can go to dandjohnson.com. What I like to do is offer them one of our webinar series absolutely free, where everyone else is signing up for them. They're paying for it. For your listeners, if they go to dandjohnson.com, give us your name and your email address. You're going to begin to receive, we're going to welcome you, and then you're going to receive an email that's going to give you 3 webinars that's going to take place. You pick which one is most suitable for you, and that webinar is going to be absolutely free to you. And so that's what we have going on. I definitely appreciate your time, Tim. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you, share with the audience. And I hope that because I was here today, that we've empowered some people to live a better life.
Me too. Thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Dan. This has been a lot of fun. And you said dandjohnson.com, right?
andjohnson.com.
Love it. Thank you so much. And thank you for that gift too, because all 3 of those webinars would be useful for anybody, right?
Yeah,
So thank you so much for that.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe and rate and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.